All right, hello everyone. Welcome to today's webinar, Fixing the Billion-Dollar Hole in the Roof with e-conolight. I'm your host, Timothy Johnson. I'm the digital editor for Electrical Contractor. Before we get started, I need to go over some housekeeping items. The audio for today's presentation should be coming through your computer speakers or headphones. If you prefer to call in, there's a toll-free number in the event info panel. If you have other difficulties, please reach out to me using the chat window. I also want to let everybody know that today's presentation is being recorded. So if you miss anything or something comes up and you have to leave, you can come back at your convenience. And finally, there's going to be time for Q&A after the presentation. So you can submit questions through the Q&A box or comments in the chat box at any time. If you're having trouble finding those features, hover your mouse at the top of your screen. Control panel will drop down and you should see those options there. Now, our presenter today is Andrew Stevens. He's the product manager for e-conolight. And on behalf of Electrical Contractor Magazine, I want to thank you all for attending. Now I'm going to hand it over to Andrew Stevens to get started. Andrew, you there?
All right, great. Well, thank you everyone for joining us today. We're happy to go over some information about the high bay market and the need for LED high bays. So we're excited to kick off fixing the billion-dollar hole in the roof. A couple of things that we're going to cover off today are the challenges and limitations of traditional light sources, the advantages of LED technology for industrial applications, and why now is the time to make the switch, and then what some of the things to look for with your LED lighting solutions, and then kind of what's coming next, a glimpse into the future, so to speak. So revolution is in the air. There's a number of high bay, many high bay lights out there in the market already, everywhere from gyms to retail stores, manufacturing, industrial facilities, and things of that nature. So making the wrong choice on your light selection can have a huge impact on your budget, not only from a CapEx perspective, but also ongoing operational costs. Making the right choice can save you 65% or more by using LED technologies. So we're going to go through a little bit of the options and what has led to this point. Another note is that lighting can accommodate so much more productivity for your facility by just making everything by reducing your maintenance costs and reducing downtime within your facilities. So you can really have a dramatic impact on your productivity. So what got us to, what drove to LED? HID technologies such as metal halides, there were big energy hogs, created a lot of heat. The rated lives drop off quickly. You have to watch disposal costs, and obviously the maintenance costs and loss of productivity are constantly there. For example, a 400-watt metal halide high bay fixture can cost you well over $200 a year in electricity. And with the cost of new technologies that are coming out, your ROI can be in as little as a year or two, depending on your facility. Another downside of metal halide is that you have a lot of increased unnecessary heat. So even though you don't see it directly in an ROI on a high bay fixture, you're going to have elevated HVAC costs and things like that. So also with a metal halide, the fixtures are typically an omnidirectional light source, and by trying to direct that light into a useful space, you do lose some of your efficiency. Metal halides also will fade out, and depending on how much you're running them, you can actually reach the 65% of initial lumens in as little as 12 to 14 months. So you're very frequently having to relamp those fixtures, and causes downtime and additional maintenance. Fluorescents are a little bit more efficient, but they have their pros and cons as well. They still use a lot of electricity. They waste a lot of light. Their operating temperature ranges can be a little bit stringent. The disposal has to be monitored as well. In many cases, they do attract a lot of dirt, and lighting controls can have an impact upon the ballasts and other components within those fixtures. So even though these may be a little bit more efficient in some cases than other HID solutions, you can still spend over $200 a year powering some high output fluorescent fixtures. And again, depending on how many hours a day you're running that. Fluorescence being a tube of light, it's still an omnidirectional light source, so you lose some of the lighting efficiency by having to reflect that light down into the useful space. Many fluorescent tubes are designed to work in optimal ambient temperature ranges. For instance, T12s and T8s are typically around about a 77° Fahrenheit optimum range, and the T5s have a little bit higher optimum range. Now, when you're dealing with uncontrolled airspaces such as warehouses and some industrial facilities that are maybe hotter or cooler than those ideal temperatures, you're going to lose some of your efficiencies. So let's make the switch to LED. There's many benefits to LED. They are known to be energy misers right out of the box. They're going to use less energy. They're longer lasting than metal halide or T5, T8, T12 lamps. They're low maintenance and don't require as much careful handling. When properly constructed, they're quiet with no buzz or hum, and they don't flicker, causing headaches. Lifetimes are rated for extremes, not ideals. So we just talked about some of the ideals of fluorescent technology having to be in ideal operating temperature ranges, but LED is more rated for the extremes, so they can have a much greater tolerance within those ambient temperature ranges. They're instant on, instant off, so you don't have to wait for the fixtures to warm up to get the full brightness, and they're versatile. So not all LED fixtures are created equal. There's many different designs out there. There are linear solutions and there are round solutions, and then also just putting that light where you want it. So within different application needs, in some instances such as a retail facility, they may want to have a little bit of uplight to illuminate the ceiling, whereas in a warehouse, the concern may be less for having any uplight and they just want to direct the light downward. There's also needs for instance, in a warehouse application, you want to make sure that you can provide adequate illumination on your floor, but then also up the sides of your warehouse racking so that your workers can adequately see what they're trying to work with. But additional light up at the top doesn't necessarily do you any good up on top of your products. So putting the light where you need it is very important, and optimizing with layout tools that show you how the light will be dispersed throughout your facility can help you reduce the number of fixtures and increase your efficiency for your facility as a whole. Some other things to consider are the maximum ambient temperature. Commonly, high bay fixtures are a 40°C ambient temperature. Many do also go up to 50 or even higher potentially as you go into a higher grade product or a spec grade solution. The quality of LED lighting is significantly higher than fluorescent or metal halide. You have typically at least an 80 CRI color rendering. Some high bays may get up into the 90s. It all depends on the solution that you're looking for. But older technologies many times have lower color renderings, and so they provide just a lesser quality of light. Another thing to be concerned about in high bay lighting is the surge protection. So many facilities will have issues with transient protection and making sure that your fixtures aren't going to be failing because of a surge that was unforeseen. So many high bay, LED high bays will have a surge protection built into them of at least 6 kV, and many are up to 10 kV. Here are a couple quick examples that just kind of a snapshot of the difference between metal halide versus a T5 versus the LED. So a metal halide fixture may be consuming 410 watts, which is comparable to a 6-lamp T5 HO that's at 365 watts, and an LED replacement for this could be somewhere around the 140 watt range. So there's dramatic LED savings to be had with these, and with the declining costs of your standard LED high bays, the ROIs are shortening even more, and so the time to switch is now. There's many options when it comes to lighting controls. This webinar isn't so much focused on the lighting control options that are out there, but just to make you aware of some that are. There's occupancy sensors is probably one of the most common features for high bays, where you can have just a sensor on each unit, or you could set it up to control multiple units possibly as well, where if there's no traffic in a warehouse space, then the lights will shut off. Some will also go down to 50% dim when there's no traffic, and then after a longer period of time, shut down entirely as well. So many utilities and many areas of the country are starting to require lighting controls more and more, so this will become more prevalent if you're not already seeing it in a significant degree right now. There's also dimming controls that will, so you can install fixtures across your facility, and then depending on the time of day, or if you have skylights in your facility, that you can save energy by dimming your lights down to consume less energy. So we touched a little bit on the high bay selection, but here's a few more, and just kind of want to detail this out a little bit more for you. Deliver lumens over time. So high bays are LED fixtures are evaluated based off of their L70 number, and what that means is how long it takes for that fixture to fade down to 70% of its initial life. Now, the nice thing about LEDs is that we're seeing significant improvements in the long life of LEDs. They've increased compared to where they were when they first came out, and so they're just getting better and better. So it's very common to see fixtures that have well over 50,000 hours of useful life. That's roughly 17 years of 24/7 operation. The light quality, we talked about CRI being at least 80 CRI, so there's high light quality, and the ambient temperature ranges to meet your facility's needs. We commonly get calls and concerns about ambient temperatures in warehouses in Arizona or other hot parts of the country, and then at the same time we hear about needs in large refrigerated spaces. So LED is a great solution that can cover a broad range. Warranties are commonly 5 years or greater. The DLC is a third-party certification that will commonly qualify products for rebates depending on the local utilities that you're working with. So 5-year warranty for the whole fixture or greater, depending on the manufacturer. Safety listings are huge, so there's a lot of garbage out there. You can buy really, really cheap high bay fixtures for not very much money at all, and that number keeps going smaller and smaller, but the safety listings that they're carrying or not carrying can make a big difference. So fully evaluating a product and ensuring that it's going to meet a 5-year warranty and actually deliver to the customer's needs is very important. And that's one of the things that we always pride ourselves on doing. So what's coming soon in the high bay industrial space? By having lighting across your facility, it gives you a power source in the sky, so to speak. So there's a lot of additional flexibility that that could be developed within this space. I know retail is a huge opportunity for identifying where people are in the stores. Things like just wayfinding is huge. Facilities are laying out their floor plans to accommodate the best traffic flow or to drive traffic flow past where they want customers to go. And in warehouse or industrial applications, you may you may streamline your operation by identifying the locations that you need to go to most often, and you can shorten your drive distances or efforts needed to get to those locations just by monitoring where people are and traffic patterns. Asset tracking, such as physical assets, your fork trucks or any other types of equipment, those are all very important things that that the industry keeps driving towards, and there's additional value add in there. Those value adds may not show up on your electric bill, but they add up into your operational costs and efficiencies there. So there's additional savings to be had. More of an upgrade than a transformation. So the right LED high bay lighting doesn't just replace what's been there. It shows your customers, workers, investors, and visitors that you're headed in the right direction. There's a large sustainability play to be had here, showing increased efficiencies and lower costs, and then also just providing a better space for the people that are there. Here are a couple of examples of some of our high bays that we have. So as you can see, we have linear high bays and round high bays, and there's various different wattages and lumen outputs, reflector options, covers, guards, all kinds of accessories that help provide a broad range of solutions for various facility needs. Again, touching on providing a quality solution, we make sure that we fully test our products, especially within those maximum ambient ranges, to ensure that we can provide that robust warranty for our products to our customers. So that's about it. That's the high level overview of the high bay market, the high bay industry out there. Thank you for your time. I'm glad we were able to go through this, and if there's any questions, I'm willing to take them.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks, Andrew. It was a great presentation. I think it's going to be super valuable to our audiences who are in attendance today and who may view this recording. So now, I want to open the floor to discussion and comments and questions. Feel free to use that chat box or the Q&A box in your WebEx event window. So thanks to you who've already submitted questions. If anybody else has questions, please feel free. So I'm just going to dive right in. Andrew, you showed the slide comparing the wattages of metal halide and fluorescents and LEDs. Do you have a general percentage range for how much more efficient LEDs are in an industrial setting than metal halide and fluorescents? Just kind of like a guideline that our contractors can go to their customers and say, yeah, hey, they're this much more efficient.
Yeah, so that's always kind of a broad range. We kind of peg that at about 65% energy savings here for simple math of this. You look at that 400 versus 140 watt comparison of metal halide to the LED. There's a figure in there. I'm not exactly sure what that number is, but it's well over 50% energy savings. And the other thing that I talked about there also with controlling the light and putting it where you want it, you may be able to go from, you know, a 30-foot spacing to a 40-foot spacing in your facility, so you can actually reduce the number of fixtures, which actually, so it's not just a one-for-one savings. So there's, you can look at it from a fixture perspective, but then also looking at a full facility layout. That's why, you know, we offer lighting layout tools and layout assistance for customers where they can optimize those facilities to meet their needs.
Okay. Next question. I find it difficult selecting LED fixtures based on lumen output as a guide, as we have in the past. How do we properly select LED fixtures without lighting level surprises?
It's a good question. Again, it goes kind of back to the application. So are you trying to do a one-for-one replacement, and do you want to stick to that round high bay look? A linear high bay may be a better solution, or a round, you know, for that matter. It depends on the need. One thing that we always make sure we clarify and include on our spec sheets and other materials is an estimate of replaces. So, you know, this fixture replaces a 400-watt metal halide. So it's a common thing that we publish out there to help our customers see that. I can't speak for all of the manufacturers out there, but that's one of the routes that we go on that.
Gotcha. Next question. Please elaborate more on surge protection on 480-volt high bay LEDs. He says, my experience is high failure rate on these.
Yeah, so we actually don't offer a 480-volt high bay at this time. It's definitely something we're looking at, but so I can't speak specifically to that. But just in general, when you have generators and compressors and things like that kicking on and off in a facility, you can end up with surge issues. You know, even in addition to your obviously, you know, lightning strikes and things like that. But just inherent within a facility, you may get those surges. So surge protection in a general driver on an LED fixture, there's typically, you know, 2 to 4 kV surge built in depending on the driver. Some of them are higher than that, of course. But many fixtures will have an additional surge protection added into the circuitry, and they have to make sure that that's obviously wired in correctly. And so that's one of the things that we're working on incorporating into our products. And
okay,
you know, 10 kV, 20 kV, there's different protection levels that can be offered.
Gotcha. All right. Well, next question. So a lot of readers ask for like just practical tips. So this one is, what are just the top 3 selling points of an LED high bay? He says that sometimes they pitch them to their customers, and they want to stick with what's worked before. So can you kind of just boil it down to top 3 selling points of upgrading to LEDs?
Yeah, that's a great question. I would focus, of course, there's always the energy savings to be had. So that's an easy one, and a simple calculation can ballpark that figure for a customer. The reduction in maintenance and monitoring of those lights is huge. Some of the things, it's not just, hey, I need to go replace this metal halide bulb. I need to shut down a workspace. I need to reduce the efficiency of a facility. I need to rent a scissor lift to change out all the lights in my gymnasium or anything like that. So it's more than just, hey, I need to go change that out. It's everything else that goes into that. It's making sure that you have people that are there to do it. You know, we talked about that example with replacing metal halides. If it's a, 12 to 24 or even 36 months before you have to replace that metal halide, well, if you can get 50,000 hours or more, in many cases significantly more, out of your high bay, that's several years you can go without having to do anything to close down that space to address any lighting concerns. So there's large maintenance savings there. And then just the quality of light. You have a continuously performing quality light. Fluorescents are well known to cause migraines and flicker and lead to other issues. Migraines, there's another lost productivity right there if someone's going home early because of migraines. So I would just focus on the quality of the light, the energy savings, and the maintenance savings.
Yeah, it's kind of funny. As soon as I asked that question, one of our listeners chimed in with 3 rapid-fire power savings, easy install, and no maintenance. So would you say maybe easy install is like a 4th one if you have to choose 4?
Yeah, that's another easy one. Many of them are just hung by a hook or chain, and you just wire them in. So it's pretty simple to swap those fixtures out. Great.
In your presentation, you said the time to switch is now, but what room for growth do you see for LEDs? Do you think they will continue to improve, or have they pretty much reached their potential?
There's definitely room for improvement. There's always LED manufacturers that are pushing the limits of efficiency, and there's always more that can happen. And what we've seen is tremendous competition in the marketplace for LEDs. So there's costs may still continue to go down, which shortens that ROI as well. There's always a race for increased efficiencies as the market demands. So there's more and more that can be done with efficiencies and costs. We talked about all that monitoring, and that's all things that can couple into lighting. But just in general, the LED industry keeps going and keeps moving further. There's efforts to reduce the blue light waves in lighting and provide better quality. How can they specialize lighting solutions for different times of day, or specialize it better for one facility versus another. Color changing, color tuning, there's all kinds of different things that are going on, and they're not all necessarily the right change for a high bay application, but there's some of those things will filter into high bays and other parts of the LED market.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I was actually going to bring that up because you did raise controls briefly in the presentation, but you didn't go too much in depth to that. I know in residential and commercial applications, color tuning is kind of a big thing that's hitting now. Do you see that being something that becomes, an application here in the future for industrial settings, or is that something that you think that industrial settings just probably may not find a use for?
Never say never, but I think that for the high bay perspective, at least in an industrial warehouse application, generally speaking, I think that's probably going to stick more around the 4,000 Kelvin, 5,000 Kelvin color temperature. Having that color tunable aspect of it, it does add cost, so there's a trade-off there. So does someone really want it? Then are they willing to pay for it? And that's always the big question. I don't see it happening too much for an industrial application, but in a retail space, there's possibility there. I think that the color tunability is going to play more in office spaces when you're looking at flat panels, you know, troffers, basket troffers, downlights. Those are kind of the spaces that the color tuning is more prevalent in right now, and that's kind of a tough one to put your finger on as far as market popularity. I've heard it's as low as 1% of the market, and I've heard it's as high as 5%. So I still don't think it's a huge portion by any means, but it's definitely growing. I don't know how much it will grow within high bays.
Okay, great. Well, at this point, we have gotten to all the questions we received. So if anybody has any final questions out there, go ahead and send them in. Otherwise, is there anything you'd like to add to close out, Andrew?
Not really. Just thank you, everyone, for joining us today, and I hope that you learned something here and maybe got a different perspective on high bay lighting.
Great. Yeah, and thanks to you, Andrew. Thanks for the great presentation and the awesome answers to questions. I do want to remind everyone that this recording will be available, and I'll let you all know here shortly by email when you can access that. So feel free to share it or revisit it as you please. And just on behalf of Electrical Contractor, I want to thank everyone. And thank you again, Andrew. And I'm going to go ahead and end the event now, and we hope to see you in a future webinar.